Hi, I'm Norm Kern, and I'd like to welcome you to Access MC, Access to Motorcycling. Each month, we bring you motorcycle races, people, and activities. If you're already a motorcycle enthusiast, then this show is especially for you. Even if you're not currently a rider, there's no need to miss out on the fun. Motorcycles, riders, and activities are everywhere. Dirt track motorcycle racing has always been very popular in the Midwest. Half-mile dirt tracks are very common at fairgrounds where they're used for horses, and so there's always a place to hold a race. The race we're going to this month is a half-mile dirt track race at Springfield, Ohio at the Clark County Fairgrounds, which is usually held in April each year. This is the first event on the motorcycling calendar, and so we have a good turnout of fans and racers as well.
April in Clark County generally means that the farmers are out in the fields working their fields getting ready for the spring plowing, but for the motorcycle faithful, they head for the Clark County Fairgrounds where the opening motorcycle race of the season has always been held since probably back in the early 60s. I think that the 1990 race was the 28th annual event. The races have always well attended. There's generally 3,000 to 5,000 people there, and the motorcycle riders themselves come in from all over the United States and Canada. It's the opening event, and it's kind of a meeting of the clan as a rule. Up in the grandstand, you'll find racers that have retired from years ago. They're up there getting together with their old buddies, and down in the pits, you'll see the guys unloading their equipment, getting ready for the day's events. We're over here in the pits of Larry Pegram, who's a third-generation dirt track motorcycle racer. Larry, how old are you?
I'm 18 years old.
Now, how old are you when you started racing?
I started racing when I was about 5 and started riding motorcycles when I was about 3.
What did you start riding when you started racing?
I started riding hare scrambles on a Honda 50 and just started riding motocross, and I rode motocross for a couple years and then started riding dirt track, and I've been doing that ever since.
How old were you when you first started an organized competition at a club event like?
Oh, I was 5 years old and went to a first race, and there was only me and another guy in the class, and I was in second, and the guy's bike broke, so I won my first race.
Is that right? Well, that's a win's a win, no matter how you got. Well, then you turned professional when you were 16, right?
Yeah, I turned professional at 16. Turned junior when I was still 16, and turned expert once I turned 17, and now I'm 18, so I've been expert for 2 years now.
So actually, as a professional, you only been riding professionally for what, for 2.5 years?
Yeah, about 2.5 years, 3 in September. So
that's moving up quick. How do you find the competition with a white plate level, which the experts wear?
Oh, it's a lot stiffer. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you get some competition with the juniors. Sometimes you get real stiff, and then sometimes it's kind of easy. But it's never easy when you're an expert. You always got competition. Like today, we got Steve Morehead and Scott Stump. We got some of the best experts in the country, and they all live here in Ohio, so they come to this race here at Springfield. So anytime you're an expert, every race is going to be tough.
Well, kind of describe your bike. It's beautiful.
Well, this is a 750 Honda. I think they developed it about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer than that. Bubba Schobert and Ricky Graham rode them to 5 national championships between the two of them. Skip Eakin was Bubba Schobert's mechanic the whole time, and they're great bikes. They're real reliable, more reliable, I think, than the Harley Davidson. They're just a real good bike, and Skip Eakin's got the bike prepared perfectly and immaculate, so I'm looking forward to racing it today.
Well, Larry, we wish you the best of luck on your career, because you're just now getting started. Even turning expert at 18 is quite an accomplishment.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Here we have the tech inspection with Tommy Glazer, the AMA staff, doing the inspecting. Tommy's a tremendous two-cycle mechanic himself. He's been around motorcycling for many, many years. Here he's eyeballing Chance Darling's Harley Davidson. Tom does a terrific job. He really has the eye for detail. He's checking the safety wiring on the drain plugs. When Tommy gets done inspecting the bike, he gives it his sign of approval, and the bike is ready for the track. We're in the pits of Stevie Morehead. Stevie, this is my pleasure. I've watched you grow up in racing. We go back a long way together. How old are you, Steve?
35, Bob.
Now, we're talking about a game where most guys ride up to about 25, 26, so you're in this thing about 10 years longer than the rest of them, and you're still competitive. Must be clean living, right?
Well, I like to think so. You know, we just work awful hard at what we're doing. You know, we actually can make a living being a professional motorcycle racers, you know, thanks to my sponsorships I have with various people in the Dayton area. KK Motorcycle Supply and F&S Harley Davidson, they make it to where I can actually race my motorcycle on the weekend and be able to make a living doing it.
Well, Steve, you're a second-generation racer, right? Your dad raced?
Exactly. My dad, Jim, he raced on the amateur level, though, and then when I was 10 years old, I talked him into buying me a little motorcycle, and I went to the sportsman races with him, and once I figured out what all the flags and, you know, the different classes were, then I talked him into letting me start racing.
I'm going to have some fun with you here for a minute, Steve. Go back to 1970. You remember your first ride on a big bike?
Well, I wasn't a novice till 1972.
Well, okay, then must have been 72 then.
Well, 72, I had a TD2 Yamaha twin road racing bike that we just adopted over, you know, to the dirt track, and they were real powerful 252 cylinder motorcycles. And when we come here to the Clark County Fairgrounds, there was like 120 novice riders in the class that year. And if you did not win your heat race, you didn't make the main event. If you didn't have one of the fastest 12 heat races, you still didn't make the main event. So that's how competitive it was back then. And you know, the sport's really changed an awful lot. We don't have near the riders that we had back then. Of course, the price of equipment's gone up extensively.
Well, back in 72, when you was a novice and you made your points, we ran up to Toledo to a national, or as a pre-national race. And you were a novice and you were walking back to the garage, and I had my Harley up there. You remember taking a ride on it?
Yeah, that's right. I did go out and spin around on your own motorcycle.
I think what I remember more than anything else was the fact that you went out on a hot lap session. Naturally, you were a novice and you was out there with all the national known experts. And you drove down in the corner and you about fell off in the very first corner. And I thought, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And then the second time around, you came out and Gene Romero went by you. Remember Gene?
Yeah.
And you followed him down in the corner and tried to pass him coming out on the backstretch. And I thought, my God, that kid's going to be great. And it just really makes me smile when I think about how you really come on in the sport of motorcycle racing, Steve. You've been pushing hard for a national championship. You're close. How close are you?
Well, right now, Bob, after 2 events, we're ranked 3rd in the national point standings.
Is this going to be the year you're going to wrap it up?
Well, I hope so. As you can see here, I got 2 brand spanking new motorcycles, you know, that I've only got 1 race on this one here so far, and that's basically why we're here today at the Clark County Fairgrounds, is to try to sort the motorcycle out, because in 2 weeks I go back to California and we go after them valuable Camel Pro Series points. So I come here today to try to sort the motorcycle out, try different adjustments on the bike, and figure out what it's going to do every time I change this little increment on the front, or shorten my wheelbase, or the ride height of the bike by the shocks. There's so many adjustments on these motorcycles. You have to know that you're in a position where you have a certain problem that, aha, if I change this is going to fix it, or I change that, that's going to fix it. So, you know, you just got to start from scratch and then try to learn what each one of these adjustments does do to the motorcycle handling.
We wish you the best of luck, and we're glad that you've made such a tremendous name for yourself in the sport.
Well, thanks, Bob, and thank you for being here.
No, it's my pleasure, Steve. Steve Morehead, a great winner of 17 national championships. First event on the program was an old-timers race, and this is a Prewar Indian. This is an old-time motorcycle that was raced back before the war. The event is a 4-man event, and they're going to run the different type machines. This is a KR ridden by Bob Litton. It's a 45-inch flathead. It was raced up until 1969. These scorers getting ready to count the laps and things. Now this is John DeMoisy out of Kentucky on his Triumph.
What's it like? I mean, you have been off of half miles for a while. What's it like going back out there and getting invited to come to race at Springfield, the season opener?
Well, I haven't been on a half mile in 20 years now, and it's a little scary to me now. Back, 20 years ago, it was fun to go fast, but now it's a little scary.
Tell us a little bit about the family. You've got a couple children that you got to be proud of. I mean, they're just great kids.
Yeah, they're good kids. My daughter lives at home, well, in Flint, and my boy lives down in Alabama.
And how many times a grandfather now? 4. Congratulations, Mr. Markel. 4, national number 4 times grandfather. Bart Markel, ladies and gentlemen, one of the truly great motorcycle racers of our time.
Dave McCarthy interviewing Bart Markel. Bart was three-time national champion. He won in 62, 65, and 66. And Bart was probably one of the most courageous men to ever sit on a racing bike. His exploits on the tracks of the United States are fantastic, and anytime the racers get together, man, they can really tell some tales about Bart Markel duels with George Roeder, Dickie Mann, Ronnie Rawl. Ronnie Rawl is out here in this old-timers event. Ronnie was a novice back in 1960, and he wore yellow and black leathers. To show you how good a shape he keeps himself in, he still is wearing those same leathers. This is just an exhibition event. The guys are out there what they call barnstorming, just playing around. The bikes are old and they're not, what I would say, really kept up in good shape, so rather than have something break or something and ruin their motorcycle, they just keep it down in speeds, but they just play around a little bit. That's John DeMoisey out in front. Ronnie's up on his usual high cushion up against the fence. That's where he used to race. He loved to throw dirt all over the spectators when he'd come down into the corners. That's Bart Markel running third behind Ron. Probably one of the things that really sticks in my memory happened in 1962 on the 4th of July up at Mansfield. Ronnie and George Roeder and Bart Markel were all engaged in a real tight duel for the expert event, the main event. Ronnie was leading it, and George got by him coming down off the backstretch, and then Bart come in underneath the two of them, and he had his KR around so far that the rear wheel started chattering, and the case drug and lifted the rear wheel off the ground. Well, the bike started to spin, and Markel just left his foot up in the air and let the bike go, and he slid down the track backwards, bounced on his tiptoes and fingertips, and he's staring Ronnie Rawl right in the eye, and I'm telling you, they were laughing at one another. Now, this is hard to imagine. A rider sliding down the track backwards, looking at the oncoming traffic, and the guys are laughing. And Markel never did fall down. He just slid off the speed, and when he come to a stop, he stood up and walked down off the bank track. He had the agility of a cat. He was a Golden Gloves boxer before he got into motorcycle racing. And he had to be probably what I would say the most courageous racer probably all time. Ohio has always been blessed with some fantastic dirt track drivers. George Roeder, Ronnie Rawl, Dick Clamford, Bobby Hill. The list goes on and on for years and years and years, down through the generations. We've been blessed with some of the greatest motorcycle dirt track racers that the nation's ever known. This noise that you hear in the background, this is what the guys like to refer to as a rolling thunder. You really haven't heard anything until you've heard the sound of these bikes. It just sounds like an oncoming storm, and boy, I'll tell you, this is when the storm hits right here. You have 12 high-powered racing engines diving off the line like that into the first corner. It makes a noise that really stops the heartbeat of an avid enthusiast. It's a sound that they've waited all winter to hear. And boy, I'll tell you, they're up against the fence and cheering their favorites on. This event that you're watching now is the ProAm class. This is your beginners class. It's a mixture of amateurs, people that are just trying to start their careers off in motorcycle racing, and the older professionals that no longer want to compete at the level with the experts and the juniors, so they ride these 500 single machines. It's a good training ground because the youngsters coming on can compete against the old-timers' experience, and it gives them a chance to learn how to race a bike without really being in dire danger, because these guys they don't quite run as hard as what the amateurs, the juniors and the experts do. But they do a tremendous job. It's a tremendously highly competitive race because the equipment is also equally balanced. These machines are 30.5 cubic inches, and they develop right around 40 to 45 horsepower. Considering that the machines themselves only weigh 250 pounds, a horsepower per pound ratio is very, very good, so they are very competitive. The performance of these machines are really exciting to watch. You can see they get them in the corner, and they move quite a bit of dirt around. They're pretty powerful. It gives the kids a chance to learn how to race motorcycles and still not be overwhelmed by a tremendous amount of horsepower that the XR 750 Harley or the 750cc Honda developed. Those bikes are probably anywhere from 80 to 120 horsepower, which is twice to 3 times what some of these machines develop. The gentleman there in the striped shirt, that's Mr. Art Fraser. He's the official AMA referee, and it's under his watchful eye that this event takes place. Art does a tremendous job. He really worries about these boys. He treats every one of them like it was his own son. Straightaway speed on these 500 machines is well over 85 mile an hour, approaching maybe the 90, 92 mile an hour range. They really have to back them down to get them into the corners. The modern racing motorcycle is equipped with rear wheel brakes, so you kind of point them into the corner. Now you'll notice that gentleman there, he fell off. He touched another guy's rear wheel with his front wheel as that guy was braking in the corner and took his front wheel out from him. They stopped the race and called for the medical people to come over. He wasn't severely injured. As I recall, he had to eat his dinner off the mantle for a couple of weeks and sleep on his tummy, but other than a few track burns, he was back at it again the following week. Now here's the restart. They go to the previous lap the way they were running. They line them up straight line, and that's the way they start them off on the restart like this. A restart like this doesn't give anybody a special advantage, and you can pick up about where they left off the action when their event was red flagged. As you can see, the competition's tight. It's close. These kids really go at it. A lot of people think a motorcycle racer is a foolhardy and he has a death wish, but I'll tell you one thing, these are the nicest kids you'd ever want to meet. They're clean cut, they're hard working, got dedication in their souls to do something that they want to do real bad, and that's to race bikes. They work on them 7 days a week, and I can tell you from experience, these kids, you know, they're just starting life off, they don't have a lot of money. And consequently, they don't have garages to keep them in, and I know of a couple instances where these young guys have kept these motorcycles in their bedrooms. And I can imagine what their wives thought, but they went racing every weekend. Tremendous competition. Well, I'll tell you, side by side, and each one of them wouldn't back off and give the other an inch. To show you how fast the leaders are, here they are coming up on the left rider. The left foot being down is down for a reason. It gives a rider a gauge of how far he's got that machine over when he's in the corner, and it also gives him a little bit of stability. When that rear wheel comes out, that's what keeps everything kind of straight and in line there. It's a 3-point contact for the machine and the rider. There's your official flagman, Joe Van Vickle, signaling one more lap to the leaders. Most of these machines are powered with a Rotax engine that's built in Austria. It's a single cylinder, 2-valve overhead valve engine, and it develops a lot of horsepower. It's real light. It's probably the premier engine in the world today. Mr. Van Vickle giving a checkered flag to the winner and signaling the other riders that the race is over. Here's a view of some of the crowd sitting in the stands watching the event. And I'll tell you a little funny thing about this type deal. You'll find just as many people out in the parking lot walking in among the thousands and thousands of motorcycles and looking at who's got what and what's new. It's as much of a social event as it is a sporting event to the people of the clan. The AMA trailer, that contains computers and things like that that they use to do all the paperwork on the event. Now here we have the experts lined up for their final race of the day. These are the top riders in the United States, and I tell you, if you've never seen a motorcycle race, you ought to see one, because these experts can go faster sideways than most people can in a straight line on these machines. Just watch this action down in the first turn. They rattle handlebars like pool balls on a brake. Finley Stevie Morehead is out in front here. Got a good start coming off the line. Got into the hole first, but that's George Roeder right behind him. George Roeder, the son of George Roeder Sr. out of Monroeville. He was many times the national winners. George Roeder, Markel, Rawl, I'll tell you, those guys left a legacy that their sons are just trying to match up to. Tremendous cornering speeds. Here they've caught up with a rider that's having mechanical problems. They split him, Steve-O on the high side and George on the bottom. But boy, I'll tell you, down that front straightaway at speeds over 100 miles an hour and going into that corner sideways, it's a thrill that very, very few people will ever experience. Trying to control a 100 horsepower machine that weighs 350 pounds traveling at speeds over 100 miles an hour sideways takes a tremendous amount of agility. Tremendous eyesight, depth of perception. These riders enable them to do this. The expert final is a race of 10 laps on a half-mile track. That's 5 miles. And they do this in just a little over 3 minutes. That gives you some kind of an idea of what the speeds are. Steve's continually fighting George Roeder off. Jimmy Pegram has moved into third place. You're going to see a three-man race here now. Jimmy Pegram, an 18-year-old who's really going to make a name for himself. George Roeder, the second, is 23, and there's Stevie out in front, and he's 35. Experience against youth. Steve's a tremendous statistician and technician when it comes to racing. There isn't a detail that he doesn't attend to. He monitors the air temperature, the humidity, the air density. He keeps checking the track, sure he knows where all the soft spots are, where the groove is going to be. He constantly checks his machine out. Steve works from start to finish on his activities for the day. He's a consummate pro. Now here's George coming up on the outside, trying to get around Steve on the outside. Steve fights him off, and I'll tell you, it's a two-man race, and there's Larry Pegram right behind him. Any one of the three riders could win this event. And it's the little things that'll do you in sometimes. It doesn't take much of a hesitation to drop a spot. There's a thing that hurts you the most. Steve caught his foot, had to get off the throttle to get the bike straightened out, and that cost him the lead. George went around him. Now here comes Pegram. Pegram trying to get around Morehead. Taking a white flag, one more lap to go. That little split cost Steve hundreds of dollars in prize money. There's Pegram going underneath Morehead. Now watch TV come back after him. And we're going to really see a dogfight for that second place. There's a crowd getting ready to go down to the pit area and get their autographs, talk to their favorite riders. They'll probably meet some friends, decide whether they're going to stop and have dinner on the way home. George Roeder II. Boy, he following in the footsteps of his dad. That's George Sr. there off to the left. A tremendous father and son team.
Good job. I don't know what they charged to get in here today, but you got your money's worth.
Back in the 1960s, when I started riding motorcycles, flat track racing was just about the most popular motorcycle spectator sport going. But a lot of things changed along the way. Because of the increase in the number of national races, the local races practically died out because the riders and the spectators wanted to go to the nationals. So now it takes something special to have a successful local half-mile dirt track race. And in this case, it's the fact that it's the first event in the spring and it's a big event on the social calendar as well as the motorcycle racing calendar. Well, that's all we have time for this month. So until next time, I'd like to personally invite you to join the over 7 million riders who enjoy the world of motorcycling. See you next time.